the study of it has taught me, it has really enhanced all the relationships in my life with friends and family and significant others. It's also helped make quota a few times. So the study of sales is really the study of human communication.
Hey, Steve, welcome to Women Your Mother Warns You About.
Hey, Gina, thanks for having me.
We are so excited. I know, Rachel, you're excited, right?
I am excited about hearing about Steve's company and his software and how he got started, since I am in the middle of developing software right now myself, which is a huge learning curve for somebody like me.
So she's really hoping to glean a lot of stuff from you, Steve.
That sounds reasonable. I'm here to be gleaned.
Fantastic. It's been a while since I like a man who wants to be gleaned.
Yeah, I've never been asked to glean someone.
You've been warned, Steve.
I'm ready. Tap me in, coach. I'm ready to play.
It's been a while since we talked. You were on my Pivotal Leader podcast a couple years ago, and I reached back out to you because I thought it'd be cool to bring you back into the web of women. Let's call ourselves the web of women. So welcome back. I want to kind of catch up with you, see what's going on with you. When we last talked, when you were on the Pivotal Leader, I don't think you had a podcast yet, and you do now, correct?
I do, yeah. We've done, 40 episodes or so. It's called the Outside Sales Podcast. Outside Sales Talk is the name of it. And we've just focused on things that outside salespeople care about. So like skills and generally I'm bringing on experts in the sales field and having them chat about field sales and kind of giving their advice and perspectives from the perspective of field sales.
Oh, cool. So we're going to glean that from you too. We're going to do a lot of gleaning.
All right. I think I like gleaning. I'm not sure.
I think we've come up with a new word. He's gleanable.
No, I'll be doing the gleaning over here. We're gleaning from you.
Let's be clear. We're the gleaners. We just keep coming up with new hashtags. Let's talk a little bit about your company so that everybody who's listening, our listeners, know a little bit more about BadgerMapping and what that is and what you do, because I think it's pretty interesting for anybody in sales that doesn't know about it.
Sure.
Yes, and Steve, please start from the beginning of where, how you led up to creating that software, because that's the part I'm super interested in too.
All right, sure. So my background was in field sales, and I did field sales at IBM and Google and HP. My last gig was at Google, and I was focused on software at Google. So a lot of people don't know Google has a whole enterprise software division where they sell different things to enterprises. The thing that I was most interested in of their software and ended up focusing in was their Google Maps API. And so my last year or so at Google, I was just focused on the Maps API. And while I was doing that, I realized that there had been this change in the world where this is like 2012. And mobile devices were just getting fast enough to run software with mapping on them, and the actual API, the Google Maps API, was just getting good enough, and the internet speeds were just getting good enough to kind of run real map-based software on a mobile device. So a problem that I'd always seen is the way field salespeople, and in my life, because it was kind of my background, field salespeople had, from the beginning of time, a Rolodex, and then later a CRM where all their customer data and information was stored. But the way they needed to look at that, because they're in the field, is on a map, and they didn't have access to it in that way. And they also had challenges around scheduling and timing and building their route, figuring out where they're going to go throughout the day. And so I was able to build a piece of software that takes all the information about a salesperson's prospects and customers. How much are they buying, or how much, how many if you were selling stuff to dentists and you're a field salesperson, how many dentists are in this office location? What kind of teeth equipment are they using for this, that, and the other thing, and put it all the stuff that currently lives in like a CRM, and put it on a map and make it manipulatable and allow people to see and focus in on what's important, and then build a schedule around that really quickly and easily so that they're on time and that they understand kind of who's important to see tomorrow, given that I'm going to be in this area of the city. Who should I be focused on? And so that's where we started, and then we've kind of grown it into a productivity suite specifically for field salespeople, where we just try to do a bunch of stuff that historically field salespeople have done by hand or in Excel or et cetera. But now we connect to their CRM and then make it all available right on their mobile device on a map while they're moving around in the field.
That's awesome. How long did it take you to develop the whole thing before you had a minimum viable product out there?
Well, I mean, it depends how you can think about the word minimum, really. So
let's say testing it out with some humans.
Testing it out with humans was pretty fast. And we had the ability to put points on a map, and kind of get something reasonable in front of people within a year. But it was very, very basic. Didn't do a 50th of the stuff we do now. We really just solved the initial pain of, I'd like to see my territory, where my customers are, on a map, and not connected to the CRM, but just here's a spreadsheet of my data. I'd like to see that on a map on my mobile device, and that was kind of step one. And then we built it out from there, and added everything. The people that come on earliest to a product like that are the ones that need the most basic areas of your functionality. And so you want to make sure you're building the right things for those early people that come on board, because those early customers are the ones that tell you, oh, what we need next is this, and then we need that, and then we need this, and then we need that. And so you can kind of keep building and solving their problem. But the way you start a piece of software is to figure out a problem that people need solved, solve that most basic version, and then just keep stacking things on from there.
What other problems came up once you got started and you knew what the original problem and pain was? What were some of the next top, maybe 3 or 4 pain points or problems you solved for them?
Well, after we were able to put things on a map, then we built filters and colors to the points in the map. So you'd be able to say, okay, show me who's buying this product line, but not that product line. And also, I haven't seen in 90 days, and also has, their company is at least this size. Show me those points in the map, because that's who I really want to focus on for this cross-sell. Because if they're buying this but not that, they could be buying that. So that was one of the first ones we added after just plain putting the points in the map. The routing we've kind of iterated over time. The early versions of the route were very basic, and it's become more and more advanced over time, and has more and more abilities in it. But now we've made it pretty smooth at this point. I mean, and that's almost its own product within the product, the whole routing app. But the ability to kind of figure out who should I see, tomorrow or next Thursday, given what I'm already doing, and kind of being able to add things into the route, move them around, adjust the times, optimize it on, based on, geographic location, stuff like that. All this is most of the stuff that we're doing, the end user doesn't even really see. It just happens automatically for them. Right?
Mm-hmm. So it's a lot of filtering.
Yeah,
where they can kind of change the filter of what they're looking for.
Mm-hmm. And the timing, right? So figuring out, well, if I'm here at 2 and this meeting's going to take an hour, well, can I be? And then I'm going to do this from 3:30 to 5. Will I be able to get to here by 6? And kind of a lot of folks in the field, they're having 8 meetings a day, and there's a real scheduling problem behind that.
Yeah.
And then proactively, we'll suggest to people what they could be doing in the field, right? So we'll say, hey, given we can tell by these fields that these are the types of places that you visited in the past, because we can see what routes they're saving, right? So it'll be like, oh, you seem to like to visit customers that statistically have these characteristics. So we'd like to suggest that you see these 2 customers tomorrow in addition to what you're doing, because they're kind of on your route and seem to have the same characteristics to the other people that you like to visit, and you haven't seen them for a while. So we just like to suggest that you do that, and you can pick it up or be like, no, I don't want to see them, but but we'll make little suggestions automatically to kind of help people.
So it's like a virtual sales coach pushing you.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, just making suggestions, and I mean, it's half secretary, half coach, I guess. A lot of the work is kind of the busy work that goes along with sales. That because everyone has to plan their route, figure out their schedule, think about who to see, and we just make all that take minutes instead of an hour.
I've got a really technical question for you. What made you select the badger as your mascot for the app?
So several reasons, actually. So the reason I named the company Badger was, one, I went to University of Wisconsin for college.
Ooh,
and
Midwest.
So I am exactly. So it's pretty cold there right now, but
yeah.
But -30. I heard my dad's actually flying to California tomorrow, and it's -30 right now there.
It's so cold he's leaving.
Yeah, literally.
Forget about it.
Yeah, he's like, I'm visiting. So that was the first reason, and then the badger is just, it goes well with sales, tenacious, aggressive, and then there's that the badger don't give a shit video that was so popular on YouTube. Have you seen the honey badger video?
He don't care. Honey badger don't care.
Honey badger don't care. Exactly. So that video was like one of the most popular videos of the year in 2011. Right before I named the company. So the badger just had a great brand then, like everyone knew what the animal was. I'm not saying that it was the most brilliant name, because although it works well in English, it's a very hard name and a very hard word in other languages. Like, so, now that we've gone to Europe and Asia, everyone's like, badger. And no one knows what it is. No one knows what a badger is. I was actually just in Costa Rica, and I was explaining, what a badger was, and it's tejon in Spanish, but they didn't know what the word tejon was, because like they don't have badgers in Costa Rica. So they're like,
they have other cool stuff though.
They have lots of cool stuff, but no badgers. I'm like, it's an animal.
It's like a sloth on the ground, but faster.
Yeah, it's like a fast, mean sloth. So that's where the name came from.
You could come up with different names for different countries. I mean, you could.
Yeah, we could try that. So it's tricky though. That's definitely.
Well, and what I have found about this process of developing software, and I've been working on the Closing Curve, which is a real estate software, and is that you never know what you just don't know what to expect. Like, you didn't know that badger mapping would become so huge that the word badger would become a problem, because I'm sure you're always dealing with all kinds of other technical problems.
Right.
So you just don't foresee what, and then in the end, it's badger mapping. It's going to be that forever, pretty much.
Well, the other thing that I've always heard from other coaches, business coaches, like when you're starting a business, if you're so worried about the name of the company, that's the least of your worries, right? Like,
yeah, it's really easy to over-optimize when you're starting a business on lots of random things. You have to 80-20 most of these decisions, because there's just not time or money to do it right. And frankly, there is no right. Like, my advice to people name companies is to pick a noun that has something to do with what you're doing. Like, my favorite brand. Like, my favorite naming is TaskRabbit, because it's a noun. It's very easy to remember. What is it? It's a rabbit. What is a rabbit? It's fast. And what is it doing? It's doing tasks. So TaskRabbit is a great name for a company. I like that it's a noun. Apple computer, like it's. I guess they dropped the computer eventually, but it's a noun. It's just very sticky in your mind, right? It's just you remember what the thing is. I think humans are good at remembering things that they can see. I don't like adding an ly to a word. I don't like adjectives.
Yeah.
I don't like acronyms. I just don't think people can remember them in this busy world. Like, and you need that, right? Like, I need someone to encounter our product and be like, oh, I should totally do that. I'm not going to do it right now because I've got 18 things on my plate, but I'm totally going to do this. As soon as I get to it, as soon as I work my way through. I need them to remember 2 months later when they're like, okay, now it's time to start this. Like, what was that company called? Like, BadgerMaps is sticky. TaskRabbit, sticky. Apple Computer, sticky. But like,
Pivot 10 results, sticky. You can remember you have to pivot.
So I like so I like nouns, and I didn't pick the best noun because it doesn't internationalize well. Whereas Apple, Apple works everywhere in the world. I think it's just a better word, but and a great thing to do is to making up a word that actually can be sticky, like Google, is a great way to go, but it's not memorable unless you're already big. Like it's like once you've done it, that's the best way to have done it. If you really blow up, the best name is like something that's only that, and it only means you, and you like a new verb and a new noun, and
you've created a new verb, right? Because we Google everything.
You Google it, so that's fantastic. But if they were a startup, it actually inhibited them because people can't remember it, right? It's a weird word, it doesn't stick in your mind. They don't know how to spell it. Do you spell it with an LE or an EL, right? Like, and so I think that's a riskier but higher payoff name.
When we were coming up with the name of this podcast and we were going round and round and round, and we finally were like, all right, we're women your mother warned you about. Let's just hold that for now until we can come up with something else, because it's such a mouthful. And we couldn't seem to come up with anything else. And the more we would talk about it, people were like, oh, that's awesome. Like, it was like the same visceral reaction every time we said it.
Yeah.
And
I think it's great because it's memorable and it's catchy and it engages you.
Yeah, and people are like curious about it, but we do have the different versions for domain name purposes, because I have a domain name buying addiction. But you also need it, right? So like our business partner, he's like, did you get WYMW? See, I've already forgotten the acronym, right? So it's all the first initials, which we do have just as a backup, to have it. But I can't even remember the initials because there's so many words. So women warned.
I would actually use the full URL. I wouldn't acronymize.
Yeah.
Is that a verb? Acronym?
It is now.
Yeah.
It is now. Yeah, we use the full name. We also have womenwarned.com. The Rachel and Gina show. We have a variety, but I think the women your mother warned you about is what everybody's going to remember. Yeah. And so they're going to type that in. Mm-hmm. So there you have it. Rachel, did you have any more questions? Because I know I got you excited about this because you're launching an app. Were there any other questions you wanted to pick?
Oh, I could ask Steve 1,000 questions of how did you do this? How did you do that? But that might bore.
Well, yeah.
Just go on forever. Yeah. I mean, just it's all really just a learning curve, especially in the technical world. I work for another company and work with a bunch of coders, and I've gotten really good at, and I think that you need to be good at in any type of software, like facing a problem that you don't know how to solve it. Like, I have no idea how to fix this. And then you just start like grinding on it until you find a solution, because things change so fast. Mm-hmm. Or like, wonder why this broke. And I'm being very patient with the process. And my business partner in the venture, he said, just fall in love with the process, not the product, because it's going to change and morph. And if someone buys it out, then they'll destroy your baby and rebuild, just who knows. And I think that I am good at that from my background in dance. I was a ballet dancer since age 5, and it's just always about the process of like how to improve, how to make it better. Like you said, find out what is the next problem that needs solved from the aspect or from the perspective of the customer, and figure out, is it possible to solve that problem with what we're offering, or how can we add to it?
Yeah.
So I guess that's not a question.
You're spot on though. I mean that's exactly it. I mean it's a process. My biggest piece of advice to people starting companies is that know that everything is going to take you 3 times longer than you think it is, and to get like every hill that you got to charge up, you start sprinting up it for the first 20 feet, and then you end up kind of just grinding out the next mile. And everything takes longer. There's a million bumps in the road, and so you want to make sure that you have a lot of runway. You want to make sure you've got the funding, or the other job that's actually paying the bills, or you need a way, because it's going to take at least 24 months to do anything in the world of software for certain. And by the time you build a thing that's good enough for customers to use, and then actually get the customers to engage with it, and then actually get them to pay you, and then get enough of them to pay you that it means anything, it's probably going to take 36 months. And so it's a lot. Something that you think is going to take 12 months ends up taking 36, and that's why a lot of startups of this nature don't make it, is because they don't get over, they don't have the runway to do it. It's like a great idea, and they were on the right track, and they're a year into it, and they've spent 120 grand, and what they needed was to spend $1 million and take 3 years, and so that's why a lot of ideas don't make it out of the gate. It's not because it wasn't the right people to do it, or they weren't going to do it, they just didn't have the runway.
Yeah, my original launch date, when I came up with the idea and the name and just the concept in February of last year, and I had this gung ho of August 1st, it's gonna be ready.
Yeah.
And now we're in this phase of development, and as it has slowed down, I've come to realize, like you just said, we're trying to develop this with no technical debt, as little as possible, and really build it right. Mm-hmm. And you just can't rush things, and then as soon as that phase is done, they'll bring it back to me, because all the developers don't know anything about real estate. Mm-hmm. And then I'm like, well, that wouldn't make sense, and this won't make sense, so then we have to go back. So I'm realizing how slow of a process it is, and how many, just all the things that we deal with on a website, how complicated it is to put all that together, and how long it takes to get it to function so that people in today's society are like, oh, that's cool. Instead of going, well, what the hell's wrong with this? Why is it so damn slow? Or what is it? I don't get it. And they're gone.
And it's a high bar, right? It's funny. We just launched a new website for our podcast, right? And a woman on the marketing team was kind of in charge of it, and she'd never launched a website before, right? And we have this 10,000 page website and 15 languages or whatever for the company, right? And this is
There's no way to have any problems with that.
No, it's super easy.
Perfect.
We broke WordPress, and then we had to get off of that and kind of go build it off from the ground up, for the unique things we're doing. But that's been, our website's a monster, but real pain. But this is the website for the podcast. It's it's 20 pages or whatever, and I guess maybe a few more than that, but it's a very simple website, very basic stuff, and it's still you got to optimize it for mobile, you've got to do this, you got to do that, and she'd never done that before, so she was like, oh my god, this is impossible. The guy that is in charge of the team that runs the website, he's like, yeah, try this one, because she keeps going to him, hey, how does this work? And he's like, yeah, that's hard. You gotta
Cheer. I mean, we've had our own hiccups with our website, and it's a podcast website. It's not a monster, and
right.
we both have experience in WordPress, and why did this become so hard with this site? But going back to your original point, and having the runway, you don't know what you don't know. You don't know how long something's going to take, and you don't know how much it's going to cost, and it's gonna take 3 times longer and 4 times more money to get accomplished. So have stamina.
And sometimes people won't care about it. I went into this knowing, my story, but my backstory is my first career was in dance, and don't have a college degree. I have a life degree, and done a lot of different things, and I'm developing software now. And I went into it going, maybe people won't want this, but I'm sure going to learn a lot.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you work forever and then people don't want it. Like I read an article the other day about some guy in Australia, I think, and he decided he wanted to create these boots for people to run like an ostrich, and he spent a lifetime on this. What? And nobody wants it. I think it was on thehustle.com.
I've always wanted to run like an ostrich. That's
well, you might want to call this guy. He's looking for some funding because he spent hundreds of thousands of dollars.
That's what I've always wanted to do. I was actually thinking this morning, I'd love to run like an ostrich.
Well, there's about 50 different prototypes in this dude's backyard right now.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. Run like an ostrich or run
Gotta have passion, or a badger.
Yeah. Run like a badger.
That's actually, I might pivot the company. I might.
Nice.
I mean, are the salespeople going to care? There's only 10,000 or so using Badger. What if I just cut that tomorrow and start teaching them to run like badgers?
They might get more appointments done. They can get there faster. Faster than the traffic.
Wait, how fast does a badger run?
I think they're pretty fast, actually. If they want to be, they can be very fast. Like they can, I've seen videos. They're aggressive animals.
Okay.
Oh, it is never a dull moment.
No.
So you've got your own podcast and you bring on a lot of subject matter experts. Has there any? I know one thing when I started my first podcast, I learned so much from all the guests that I brought on, and one of those guests is now a partner on our show, Keith Walters, who came aboard. But I've made so many great connections and learned so many things. And I know you have your MBA from Stanford. I have my MBA from the Pivotal Leader podcast. I'm sure that you have learned a ton of things from some of your guests. Are there any highlights you could share with us?
I mean, it's been a lot of fun and a lot of learnings there for sure. Just because the whole point of the podcast isn't to hear the sound of my voice. It's to, the goal is to bring someone on who's an expert in an area of sales, like, Joanne Black, right? She's written 3 books about how to get better referrals and how what strategies and tactics and how exactly to ask for referrals and how to look at your user base and get referrals. She's literally written 3 in-depth books on the subject of referrals. So bringing her on the show and just picking her brain and interviewing her about how a field salesperson can improve their business and do better by getting more referrals is a really interesting 40-minute conversation to zoom in on that. And so that's kind of, and we've done it with 40 sales experts now or something. And, it's amazing. I guess one takeaway in terms of what I've learned is how complex sales is and how much is going on. Because all these people, they're all an expert in some element of it, and they're all different. And they all have different things to say. I feel like if I, brought someone, if I had a knitting podcast, I mean, everyone would kind of be talking about the same things, right? But maybe I just don't know a lot about knitting.
I think there's a lot to it, Steve.
Yeah, there might be more that I'm giving credit for. But
there's different stitches and stuff.
Right, different ones. I mean, but these guys, these people that I have on the podcast, they all know so much about this topic, and they can go so deep on it. And I learn so much in every podcast. And that's probably the biggest takeaway is how much there is to understand about sales and how much great expertise and knowledge there is out there.
And just the nuances. I know one thing with Pivot 10 Results, when we started out as Carolina Improv, and then we pivoted with Pivot 10 for our training division because people were afraid of the word improv. And then our training focused on culture and leadership, sales and customer service. And it got really hard selling culture and leadership because nobody wants to say that their culture and leadership needs help. Mm-hmm. And we started to really niche in the sales space, right? Because this was all part of the evolution, like what we're talking about. Like you start figuring out what the real pains are for people. And then you start really niching down to, we do sales training that's improv based, and that's where the focus is, and it's so niched and different.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so many people, so many experts out there.
I've always wanted to do improv classes. That's one of like the major things in my life to-do list, actually. Like I think it would be really helpful. It's like that. I have a challenge with my list of things that I want to do. Like Warren Buffett says, to be effective, you got to make a list like the top 20, 25 things that you want to do in life. And then only do 3. Only do the top 3. Circle the 3 you really want to do. Circle those, and then ignore the rest. Improv has been on my ignore list for years, but it's up near the top. I want to do it so bad, and I think it would be really valuable for me. So I've been thinking about trying to make that happen.
Oh, Gina, you need to send him your. He could be one of your beta testers on your spontaneous selling course.
Oh yeah. That's a great idea.
I like beta.
Yeah, which should be which should be done like any minute now. It's in the final phase.
And the improv, I learned improv for sales from Gina, and I use yes and for everything. I use it with my child. Mm-hmm. I use it with my man. I'm like, yes. So it's, and I mean, I have the word but is so out of my vocabulary now that I have a hard time using it. Even when I'm writing a blog or something, I take it out because yes and it's probably the greatest sales technique I've learned so far. Yeah. And we've learned a lot so far on everything.
Yeah, to take that one to heart, I use that one all the time. I have taken a couple improv classes, and I really
you have. Yeah. So it sounds like you feel like you need to take more.
I would want to take
He's
more.
Not a virgin. He's not an improv virgin. He's just needs some more experience.
That's right.
Well, it's like with anything in sales, you get better with practice. Improv, you get better with practice. It's a brain thing. It's a mindset thing. And if you don't practice it, you're not going to be very good at it. So people who just want to do a one-off training with us, that's great. Only if you're going to make sure that your team continues to use those skills.
When the power of improv jumped out at me, the first time I was like, wow, this is really something that's cool, is I saw an improv show. There's a group here in San Francisco that does improv, and it's like $5 to go watch them or something. And, And after the show, I wasn't in the improv, right? Like I was just watching it. But after the show, like me and my friends were all sitting around discussing things, and like the group was really funny and creative, and like we were just like riffing off of each other in a different way than we normally did because we had just been watching improv for an hour and a half. Like it made us, it like temporarily rewired the group's brain to like be more creative and be better at conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. That's it. Exactly. We encourage, we have a theater and we encourage so we have classes and we have our corporate division, but we encourage all of our students that they have to come see shows because that's a form of their learning is by watching, and it actually makes them sharper when they come into class.
That makes sense.
Maybe we need to take a trip to San Francisco. You've plenty of improv there, but you don't have me and Rachel. So
that's right. I think there's a big community of it here. I think there's a lot.
There is. There's a huge community there, and there's a lot of talented people there.
Chicago's
sounds
really
good
big.
to me.
Chicago's really big too, right?
Chicago's the birthplace. That's where I'm from originally. So Chicago's is. Are you from Chicago?
I am. Lincoln Park.
Did I not know this?
You might. I don't know if it's in my bio.
I don't think we've ever talked about that.
I don't know. I don't think we have.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I grew up.
Do you guys need me to leave you alone for a minute? I've lived there. I lived there for a little bit.
That counts.
I can jump in too.
Count it.
I lived in Evanston.
Oh, okay. Well, I grew up right by Evanston, and I grew up in Lincoln Park.
It's a great town.
I moved to the northern suburbs, right next to Evanston. My mom was like, her house was like six houses away from the edge of Evanston and Wilmette.
Oh wow. Well, I went to DePaul.
Okay.
So I was right there in Lincoln Park.
There you go. There you go.
Wow, look at that. We probably knew each other somehow. We probably drinking in the same bars in Lincoln Park.
But I want to swing it back around to, I want to hear about some of the stuff that, the experiences that you had working for Google, and I also, like, for IBM, HP, like, what did you experience in selling, and what were the challenges? Like, I would love to hear about that stuff.
So the great thing about selling for a blue chip company like, IBM, or it's a misnomer to say that I was at HP. I worked at a software company, Autonomy, that got purchased by HP. I think it says that on my LinkedIn now, because when you purchase a company, it changes the logo changes, right? But I actually worked for like a relatively small software company that got bought by them. But I was at IBM, which is like one of the biggest companies in the world at the time, from an employee perspective. And then I worked at Google for like 4 years. The selling for a blue chip company like that, the great thing is, like, when you call the CIO to talk about technology, like, they're going to take your call when you're like, yeah, I'm your contact from IBM. Like, they'll have a meeting with you. They're not necessarily going to buy anything, especially because, a lot of what IBM does is questionable. They sell hardware and software and services, and from my perspective, a lot of the software was really complex to use, and they've moved away from a lot of it today. I think they've moved more into, like, they've focused their business on services since I was there, but it was great because everyone will take your call, but they won't necessarily buy anything. So that's the bad side. So you can definitely waste a lot of time. When you work for a blue chip company like that, you spend half your time kind of working with, you're half selling to your own company to, like, get things done and push things along, and half selling to your customers. Where if you're selling for a smaller company, I think it's much more customer focused as opposed to internally or politically focused.
Right. That's understandable. Interesting. I bet that there's a lot of salespeople out there that would love that opportunity to have people just take their call easily and be like, oh yeah, he's from Google. Okay. But they forget that there's challenges in every sales situation, for sure, like you just mentioned.
Right. Now he calls and he says, I'm from Badger.
Yeah, people are like, who? Well, and that's our biggest challenge now, especially when we were a startup. I would call people and no one, they're like, what? Who are you? Your website looks like garbage. So, yeah, it's definitely harder to get people's attention. Whereas Google or IBM, you can totally get people's attention. Yeah. But that's a challenge, I think, for working with a no-name company, is that. And now, I think a lot of people have heard of us. If they're in field sales, they've heard of us, or they've been exposed to the concept of what we do. But
have you been able to leverage your experience to help you grow Badger, and what made you leave and start Badger?
Well, I saw the opportunity. I realized that, I kind of saw where the puck was going with, in terms of mobility and it getting faster and being able to run really cool software products on these little platforms that we keep in our pockets. And I was looking at a huge group of people, field salespeople, and thinking, nobody's mobile like these guys are mobile. There's a problem here that we could solve with technology here. And so it was a big opportunity. And so, and it's not like it wasn't everyone's like, oh, how crazy are you? It's such a risky move to leave a job like Google and go start something like this. But I knew I had money in the bank that I had saved up. And so I didn't need to work for a little while. And I knew if it didn't work out, I could turn right around and get a job, at any software company, and there's a lot of them. So it's fun. I knew I wasn't going to starve in the streets or anything, so it wasn't that risky.
And I'm sure that as a salesperson, as an experienced salesperson, right? Like, you're not really on the techie side so much. I think we talked about that once before. Mm-hmm. To get a business off the ground, to get an app off the ground, to get anything off the ground, you got to be able to sell people. You got to get people to buy into your idea. You, I'm guessing, had to raise money to get it off the ground.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think there is no more important skill in business than sales. Every CEO is a salesperson. You're selling your customers, but you're also selling your employees. You're selling your investors. You're selling your significant other who's like, could you get a job that pays, please? That'd be super useful.
Oh, you were talking to my husband? What now?
It's one of these things where you're selling to everyone, and frankly, I think not just entrepreneurs. I think everyone is selling to everyone. You're selling to your customers, or you're selling to your boss, or you're selling to the people that you work with, or you're selling. Sales is business.
Yeah. So that's a good note for everybody, that no matter what you're doing, you're selling, whether it's an idea or you're trying to close a deal on a product that you sell. We're all selling.
Selling yourself, and all the people in show business are selling themselves and selling their talent. I always think about that. People think that they're not in sales when they're in that type of arena, but yes, you are. You have to sell yourself as well. And I have to sell it to my child every night of why it's good to do your homework and get it correct.
Right.
That's the sales process.
There have been a number of times where I've gone into tech type environments for training, and not necessarily sales training, but just improv based, maybe innovation or collaboration or ideation. And they'll say, oh, well, we know you're a sales trainer. We're not in sales. We're not salespeople. I'm like, you guys need to like each other. So that requires some selling, just a little.
Right. I mean, I've found that's like the study of sales, and and you can't really study it from an academic perspective. Schools don't have classes on it, right? I took one class on sales in business school. There was only one offered, and it was about sales management, right? It's like building territories and comp plans and stuff like that. But I've kind of been a student of sales for 15 years, and the study of it has taught me. It has really enhanced all the relationships in my life with friends and family and significant others. That's definitely been one of the more important things that it's helped, and it's also helped make quota a few times. But so the study of sales is really the study of human communication.
Absolutely, I agree 100%. Could we segue to, you got a couple more minutes?
Yeah.
I want to kind of touch on this question, because you're a man and we're women, in case nobody was clear on that. He was warned. And, when we came up with this idea for our show, it was kind of like we wanted a mashup show of women who are in sales, but also real life hacks and business hacks and hacks as women, and kind of combine all that and then have some balance with men coming onto the show. And we got a lot of great feedback about that there's not a lot of shows like that where women are coming out and talking about this. And that was a little bit of an aha to me. I don't know about Rachel, but that was an aha to hear that feedback. So one of the questions we like to ask is, what is your perspective on women in sales? And, do you see, especially in the kind of business that you're in and what you're selling, are you seeing a lot of women in sales, or are there more men in sales? I don't know if there's a whole lot of statistics on that, but what do you see? And is there some advice that you can give from the male perspective?
Well, yeah, I think there are statistics on this. I mean, in our industry, software, it's definitely sales is a male heavy role. And I think that whether or not there is a balance in the workforce from a gender perspective is really industry based. And we see this all the time, right? Because we sell into sales teams, right? So our customers are sales teams. In some industries that we sell into are majority women. Some industries that we're selling to, it's a whole room full of, old white guys. And really it just depends on, and some teams are very diverse in lots of ways. And so software definitely, the sales in software is, and I guess there's different types of software. If you're selling selling databases to blue chip companies from Oracle. That's a different type of software sales than if you're selling an app like ours. But software, I think, tends to skew demographically younger, software skews younger and more male than a lot of sales jobs that we see. But there, so that's kind of my take on this particular industry.
Mm-hmm. Any advice that you could give women in sales in your industry? I have heard a lot of feedback from women who work in your industry and struggle because there's not a lot of them. Mm-hmm. Any pointers that you could give on that?
Well, I think I think it's challenging. It's just hard to be the first woman in the room. And I've had friends that have done this where it's like, yeah, I just joined this company and it's, 25 guys and they're all like Asian and Indian and white guys. And like who went to, most of them actually went to Dartmouth because that's where the founder went. And so like, it's just this like, it's this super homogenous group. And they just hired me as a intro level salesperson. And, it's just, so I'm at the bottom of the totem pole and like, it's just, or even if you're coming in at a higher level, I think it's really hard to be that first person because a lot of these cultures kind of spring up in a very bro-y way. And I've seen it a lot in the industry where it's like, oh, well, yeah, what we do is play Halo at 5 o'clock, starting at 5 o'clock every day. And we drink beers and, it's the culture that springs up around a lot of these places is not one that is inclusive. And I think, there's a big opportunity to, for women that want to join these companies, it just does it. I get that it's annoying to be early or be in an even if there's already 5 women out of 100, and it's you're not the first one, but it's still really annoying, and I get that. We've really tried to go the other way at our company with that. We were aware of it from the beginning, and and that being said, the company was started by 4 white guys, right? And that wasn't on purpose. That was just the people that started it, right? But we made a very concerted effort, and so we've been hiring and promoting women into management positions, and like you have to be conscious about that sort of thing, or else you end up with a company it's a lot hard. It becomes a lot harder to. I think everyone realizes, now we got 75 people here, and look around, it's really starting to look like the Republican primaries. Like we got to do something about this. But it's harder to do something about it once it's too late. So I would advise anyone who's starting a company or running a small company, go out of your way to hire a diverse group of people early. Yeah. And my advice to women who see a great company and want to work at it, but you realize, oh God, it's a bunch of, I went to the office and it's a bunch of guys playing Halo and, and ping pong, and there's just beer bottles everywhere. And like, I swear there was 17 dishes on this one guy's desk. Like, it's just not an inclusive environment. Like you could just feel, it feels like a frat house in here.
Yeah.
That being said, you can enter that environment and you're rewarded for being a vector of cultural change. And there's an upside because if that voice and perspective hasn't been heard, it's a very powerful voice and perspective, and it can rise through the ranks quickly.
Yeah. I think you really hit it on the head that, and I think this comes up a lot. One of the solutions is getting women into leadership roles in sales, and that will help change some of the culture. And I know you do a lot with your culture because I interviewed you, a couple years ago, just talking about the cultural part of what you do in your business. I even still talk about this. You have I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, you have a Badger of the Month program?
Badger of the Week, yeah.
Badger of the Week. Badger of the Week.
Well, and what's different about our program, so first of all, we one cultural nugget that I would really encourage people to use is we have a weekly meeting. It's at the end of the week, and anyone can bring to the group's attention a good thing or an accomplishment that anyone else did. So, and we call that giving props. But it's like, someone will say, I'd like to give props to Jessica. She did a great job with this customer. It was a hard situation, and she managed to figure out what their problem was and fix it, and the customer's really happy. Or, hey, I'm really proud of John, or props to John. He helped me out with this and that, and it really helped us figure out this one problem. And anyone can do it to anything. So it's not management doing it. Like, managers can do it to anyone, but also, we don't have a mailroom anymore, but if there was a mailroom, the mailroom person could do it to, the VP of operations, right? Like, so anyone can do it to anyone. And then we also have a Badger of the Week, which is like, one person, or I guess we have two of them now. But we have a little trophy that we kind of pass around, and whoever was the last Badger of Week is the person that chooses the next one. And so it,
Nice.
it kind of passes around the organization. And so it's very similar to like, you're just being recognized for doing a great job. But I think the key to all this is that it's recognition by peers.
Yeah.
And that's why it's a special cultural thing. Is like, it's much more common for management to recognize employees.
Yeah.
But in this case, we've kind of democratized the recognition piece.
Yeah, that's what I love about that program, because I know that you're not involved in it, and it's really on everybody else to recognize each other, and that's kind of cool.
Exactly. Yeah, I do it the
And it
same
makes
way
it-
everyone else does it. Like, I'll give props to a few people, and it kind of goes around. Anyone can jump in when they want. No one has to do it. You can just listen to. It's fine.
That's very cool.
Team building extraordinaire.
Yeah.
Makes everybody feel involved, and Lord knows you got to have a great feeling of team to make the whole thing work, right?
I mean,
Big time.
that's what leading business is all about. It's getting a group of people to accomplish a task. So you have to set the vision of the task. Hey, we're sailing the ship in this direction. This is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it, and have everyone understand how their role relates to that, and then get everyone on board and feel good about it, and treat people fairly. And it's a pretty simple playbook, I think.
Well, hey, Rachel, you're my Badger of the Week.
Yay! And the honey badger does care. That is the deduction from this conversation, that at BadgerMaps, the badger does care.
It has been so great having you on Women Your Mother Warned You About today, Steve. Thank you for giving us so much of your time and playing with us.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
been absolutely wonderful to be here. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to all my things.
Yeah, it's great. If people want to connect with you, your company, learn more, what are some of the best ways to do that?
You can just Google BadgerMaps if you want to hear about what we do for salespeople. Best way to get in touch with me is I'm on LinkedIn. That's easy to find. Just look up Steve Benson. Maybe throw Steve Benson Badger in there. Make sure the search works. But yeah, that's a great way to get in touch with me.
Awesome. So we're going to wrap up the show. So stand by, Steve, for a second. I'd like to thank all of our warners for listening to this episode of Women Your Mother Warned You About. To connect with me directly or learn more about Pivot 10 Results or Carolina Improv, you can visit GinaTramarco.com. And what about you, Rach?
To connect with me, Rachel Tipton, you can find me on social as Rachel on Real Estate, or reach out to me and get all kinds of great information on real estate at theclosingcurve.com, and find all of our social media links and free downloads on our website at womenyourmotherwarnedyouabout.com.
And hey, could you give us a 5-star review and rating? Especially, I think Steve should do that too. Get on iTunes, give us a 5-star rating, give us a review, because that helps us get found and keeps us growing up in the ranks. We're trying to pass up Steve's podcast, so that would help. Just give us those ratings. We're really trying to pass up Gittimer's podcast. And remember, for the best relationships, keep it real, raw, and relevant.
And a little irreverence doesn't hurt either.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, Warners. really will get serious soon.
Yeah, it doesn't have to. I don't think anybody wants it to be serious.
This has been a presentation of the Sell or Die Network. For more podcasts that you can take out into the street and turn into money, visit sellerdienetwork.com.